Yo, what's going on, guys? Mush back at it with another video, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the recently revealed Mass Effect Andromeda system requirements. As you guys probably know, this is one of my most anticipated games of the year. I've mentioned it many times that the Mass Effect trilogy, in my opinion, is one of the best trilogies in gaming history. Even with the lackluster ending of the third game, for overall quality, those games were exceptional, and with Mass Effect Andromeda, it looks like BioWare is just raising the bar for the series. If you guys don't know, this game will be a lot more open than the last three games. It's not going to be a full open world game, but it's definitely going to have a lot more exploration than the past games. And with all of BioWare's game, I know sometimes they come back with mixed opinions, but I've thoroughly enjoyed all of them. Dragon Age Inquisition, the Mass Effect games, Dragon Age 2, all of those games I've thoroughly enjoyed. So with that being said, let's just get right into this with the system requirements for Mass Effect Andromeda. Starting things off with minimum CPU requirements, you're looking at an Intel Core i5-3570 or an AMD FX 6350. That's pretty beefy stuff. As far as recommended CPU goes, you're looking at an Intel Core i7 4790 or an AMD FX 8350. So this is definitely going to be a game where if you have more than 4 cores, if you have hyper-threading, the game's definitely going to take advantage of it. And obviously, if you get one of AMD's new CPUs, that's probably going to be pretty nice for this game as well. I would assume that since an FX 8350 is listed as recommended, a decently overclocked i5 is also going to work well. That usually seems to be the case, at least from what I've noticed whenever an i7 is recommended. Minimum RAM requirement, you're looking at 8GB at minimum and 16GB at recommended. We've been seeing this more and more with higher end games, so I'm not too surprised here. So definitely, if you're building a $800 to $1,000 PC, definitely keep 16GB of RAM as an option. Pricing for 16 gigs of RAM have been fluctuating. Sometimes it's really high, sometimes you'll see it for a bit lower. If you can find a kit for 80 bucks, that's a pretty good price, but I've been seeing more around the $100 range. So it still is a little bit expensive, but that's another thing where we've been seeing 16GB being listed as recommended, but even with 8GB, if you have other specifications up to par, you're usually pretty good. But with all these games starting to recommend 16GB, I remember Just Cause 3 had a lot of issues if you had 8GB of RAM. Moving on to what you guys care about, the GPU requirement. On the minimum side, it's actually kind of low. An NVIDIA GTX 662GB or a Radeon HD 7852GB. Those GPUs are fairly old. I believe they released in 2012. However, if you look at the recommended requirements, it goes drastically up with a GTX 1063GB being recommended, as well as an RX 484GB. Now, those are far higher than the 660 and the 7850, but those GPUs still are fairly mid-range. They're obviously not to the level of, say, something like a 1070. The 1063GB can be easily found for like 200 bucks, and the 4GB RX 480s can be found as low as $155 after a mail-in rebate. So really, they're not too high-end. Comparatively speaking to the CPU requirements, they're far lower, so that's nice to see. But one would have to assume that this is for 1080p performance. If you're looking to game at 1440p with this title, probably gonna want something like a 1070, and then obviously if you're going up to 4K, then you're gonna want like a 1080. Finally, I do want to talk about the hard drive requirement. You are going to need at least 55GB of free space. That's not too surprising in my opinion. This is one of the bigger games of this generation, and like I mentioned, this is taking Mass Effect to a bigger scale. It's not going to be an open world title, but it's definitely going to be more open than past games. And considering that 40 to 50GB is the typical norm for a lot of games these days, this shouldn't be seen as too much of a shocker. So those are the system requirements for Mass Effect Andromeda. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Are you excited for this game? I've been hearing mixed opinions. I think most are very excited. The footage I've seen so far has looked very impressive. Technically, the game looks really good. And the BioWare games usually aren't too difficult to run, so I'm hoping for the best with this one. And they are usually fairly good PC versions, so hopefully everything turns out well with Andromeda. It looks to be a really good game. So yeah, as always, guys, thanks for watching. If you have a request for a future video, you can leave it in the comment section down below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.